And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. If you have not downloaded that, you should. It's free. You can also get us on our website at jbandgoldwatershow.com. If you're watching, look to the right of your screen. That's Darren. I'm Jamie. We're here until 2 p.m. this afternoon across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, and individually at Sports Radio JB and at Darren Goldwater. Our phone lines are open. That's also our text line, and the number, memorize this, 843-321-8893, 843-321-8893. If you would like to be a part of our program, you can do so. At 12:30 today, Cory McCartney going to join us from Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to talk to him about some of the college football coaching news going on. Some coaches maybe leaving college football and heading to the NFL. We're going to get to one of those here in just a little bit. A big name you might have heard by now. And we've got some baseball to get to with him as well. His thoughts on the national championship game. We'll even get his thoughts on the South Carolina coaching situation. We're a little bit more of a national perspective there. We've got David Cloninger at 1 o'clock today. A lot to get to with South Carolina. Obviously, plenty of topics to get to on the football side of things. And then on the hoop side, Gamecock women going to play tonight. The men are supposed to play Saturday against LSU. Mike Morgan scheduled to call that game. So that's all coming up in a little while. And Scott Glaze is going to hop on later on as well. Right now, we're in the middle of this Tiger Woods drama. I guess you'd call it. It's a documentary, but it's also a drama.
Yeah.
And part 2 comes up on Friday. So we're going to get his thoughts on that. We'd love to have your thoughts on anything. Again, 843-321-8893.
We got a welcome back, Jamie, already in our comments from Marion. I know Jamie is glad to be back. I'm rocking a D2 shirt here, Catawba, in honor of Wingate, who has been subbed into Maryland's basketball schedule. Maryland hasn't played a non-D1 in years, but because of COVID and cancellations, they've got Wingate coming up, I believe, tomorrow. So maybe we can get a D2 knocking off the Terps on the hardwood tomorrow.
All right, there you go. Yeah, thank you, Marion. I'm glad to be back. Yesterday was quite unexpected to be out. I did not anticipate that at all. But I am back today, and so certainly appreciate that. We're going to get to South Carolina in a minute. Obviously, it was a big day yesterday with South Carolina football coaches, Tracy Rocker. Obviously, that story kind of stole the headlines. There are some other things to get to when it comes to transfers and other coaching positions. So I'm going to get to all that. I know I've had some people send me some messages. They'd like to get my take on certain things. My take's probably not a whole lot different from many of yours, but I'm going to get to it in just a minute. So hang tight. First, though, it does appear that Urban Meyer will become the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. This deal is, according to sources, many of them out there, expected to get done today, and maybe even a press conference today as well. I don't know if that's possible, but we'll see. They met yesterday, and Urban Meyer highly interested in the possibility of coaching in the NFL. The first question I have, though, Darren, is why? Like, you have a great legacy of coaching college football. You've won national championships at a couple of different schools. And there are major programs in college football who have courted him to become their coach, most recently, obviously, Texas. Now, in the future, could there be others? Certainly, maybe. Why go to the NFL? Why go to the 1-15 Jaguars? Your perspective.
Because when you are in any profession, you want to get to the top of the mountain. You want to see just how good you can become. Urban Meyer has proven at the college level that he is one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. He can go to the Jaguars, and if he can have success, if he can win a Super Bowl, he will be regarded as one of the greatest all-time coaches.
Yeah.
That is a hell of a driving factor. That is, I don't know Urban Meyer. I've never spoken to Urban Meyer, but to come out of retirement from a very good, very well-paying job in which he's very good at as an analyst, to not go to the college ranks, keep in mind there are health issues there, but go to the NFL, I have to believe that what's in his mind is, I got to give this thing a shot. Let's see just how good I can be. And, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least I took my shot. And that's my read on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, we've seen some of the best coaches in the history of this sport go to the NFL and not be successful. Nick Saban, Steve Spurrier, obviously, both of those names come to mind. I mean, Chip Kelly's a guy that took a shot in the NFL and it didn't work out. He's at UCLA. I don't know if you consider him one of the best coaches in the history of the sport or not, but when he was hired to head to the NFL, he was certainly one of the more innovative coaches that we had in college football. Urban Meyer is a guy who controls his program, at least what you see on the field, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Some of what's controlled off the field can be questioned. Certainly, Will Muschamp took over for Urban Meyer at Florida and was left with a bunch of problems. And the thing with Urban is, if he wants to coach football again, does he just not have the energy to go out and recruit and deal with what you're dealing with in this evolving landscape that is now college football? He might say, look, I'd like to coach ball again, but I'd like to go do it somewhere where my responsibility literally is to coach the football team. The other thing that I'll add as to why Jacksonville, because I think there's another, and I like Marion's comment there. If he wins 5 or 6 games, they'll see it as a success. He's right about that.
See, I think he needs to win more. Maybe year one, but down the line.
I would venture a guess that's what Marion, and I agree with both of you.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. If you turn around and go and you run out and win it, go to Jacksonville next year, let's say you make it into the playoffs, say you go 8-8 or 9-7 or something like that. Hard pressed to think there'd be much more of a turnaround than 7 or 8 wins.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, you get into the playoffs. We all know in the NFL, and it's happening obviously in college football, but certainly in the NFL, the timeline is much more crunched. You're hired to be fired at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody lasts. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean,
right.
Pete Carroll's lasted in Seattle. Bill Belichick has lasted in New England. Of course, Brady wasn't there this year, and see what happened. So, you're hired to be fired in the NFL, and it's not like, well, we got to give them 4 or 5 years to get recruiting classes in. No, that's not the way it works. In the NFL, you're hired. They expect to turn around. You don't get the turnaround. You're fired.
Yes,
but you can also kind of slow play this thing. Maybe not by design, but you can slow play it, like per his comments and to yours, and I agree with both of you. Let's say he runs out next year and goes 5-11.
Okay,
I don't know, 6-10. It's not a good year, but it's certainly better than 1-15. And what it does is it puts the program and the fan base on pause, or the organization. Like, okay, we're headed in the right direction. In the next couple of years, probably going to be a little bit better than this. Buys him some more time as head coach in the NFL. Kind of sets a different standard of like, we're going to build this to get it where we want it to be, instead of running out there and somehow magically going 8-8 or 9-7, and then all of a sudden the expectation the next year is to win 12 and 13 games, and then when you don't, you're viewed as a failure, and then you get fired. That's what happens in the NFL. We see it all the time. Like, you're like, that guy literally won like 12 games last year and he got fired. Well, because he also won 12 games the second year, and it's the 4th year, and he hadn't won a Super Bowl. And that's the expectation because of all the money.
I mean, 3 years after the Eagles won a Super Bowl, Peterson's out.
He's out there.
Right.
Exactly. So, like, if he could slow play it a little bit, turn it around. But here's the kicker for me. This is the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
He gets the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yep.
And that's really what it comes down to. And the number 1 pick in the draft is going to be Trevor Lawrence.
Probably.
And so if you're a Jaguars fan, or if you're a fan of anybody that is a rival of the Jaguars, which the biggest Jaguars fan I know is Perry Orth.
All right.
Next year, the Jaguars are probably going to have Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Your outlook is much better than it was this year at 1-15. It's just a different feel.
Yeah, I mean, and there is some chatter that Justin Fields could be the guy just because of the Ohio State tenure. I don't see that. Urban Meyer has said publicly a few times how good he thinks Trevor Lawrence is. So the excitement that can build right off the bat of having an innovative play caller, a guy who has proven that he's got the ability to adapt over time. I mean, you think of Urban Meyer and you think of him at Florida and Ohio State, but before that, he dominated at Utah and dominated at Bowling Green. So he had to be evolving as he went down that road. He is as good an X and O guy, and you know this just from watching him on TV as an analyst, as there is. So expect the evolution. So the excitement would be, all right, what's Urban Meyer going to do with Trevor Lawrence? And whoever he's got calling his plays, what are they going to draw up with Trevor Lawrence and their draft picks and the money that they've got?
Yeah.
And, and maybe you can get to 5 or 6 wins. It's an interesting point, though. If you exceed that, if you go to 12, you've set the bar really high.
Right.
Yeah. And it's an interesting spot to be in.
Well, let me ask you this. There are rumors surfacing that Seattle and Pete Carroll are maybe interested in bringing on Tony Elliott, offensive coordinator at Clemson, to fill the same role for the Seahawks in the NFL. Would Urban Meyer consider that, bringing the offensive coordinator of Clemson, whom has coached Trevor Lawrence for the last 3 seasons, to Jacksonville?
He has to consider that, right? If the sentiment is true that, and it's moving this way, that the belief is Tony Elliott is not going to leave Clemson for a head college job, that he's more interested potentially in the NFL, then you have to explore that, right? You have to explore a guy who's been with Trevor Lawrence his entire college career, knows his strengths and weaknesses better than anybody on the planet.
Right.
You've got to consider that. And if he becomes a hot name that other teams want, even more reason to consider that. Again, that adds to the storyline, right?
Yeah.
We've got Urban Meyer, we've got Trevor Lawrence, and we've got the offensive coordinator who guided Lawrence to almost a perfect record in his career.
Exactly. I mean, it's really something to keep an eye on, certainly. But if Tony Elliott is interested in making that jump, why on earth would you go all the way to Seattle if your quarterback's going to go south and maybe there's an opportunity to join him and Urban Meyer, not far from home? Tony Elliott's from right here, James Island, South Carolina.
That's right.
That's where he's from.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville would be a little bit of a better situation, I think, for him if that's a leap he's looking to make. But we'll see. We're going to talk to Cory about this coming up in a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, the appeal of Seattle is obviously Pete Carroll. It's Russell Wilson.
Sure.
Yeah, you can go down with Trevor Lawrence to Jacksonville. You're closer to home. You can also go to Seattle with an established franchise, an established MVP type of quarterback, a fan base that's as rabid, maybe the best fan base in football.
Right.
There's an appeal there too. I have no idea what his relationship is with Pete Carroll. That would be number one.
Yeah, that would be obviously definitely number one. 321-8893, 843-321-8893 is our phone number and our text line. You can also send us a message on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you're watching or listening to our program. Darren can pop those up on the screen as well, and we can try to answer those questions for you or at least entertain some of your comments. Cory McCartney at 12:30, David Cloninger at 1. To the Gamecocks we go. Of course, I had an unexpected day off yesterday from our program, but yesterday morning the news broke about Tracy Rocker departing South Carolina. Nobody knew what was going on or where he was going, and it turns out he was going home to Auburn, where he played his college football. But it was the process that I think really flustered people out of nowhere, and essentially packing up in the middle of the night and saying, I'm gone. Didn't show up for staff meetings and things like that yesterday at South Carolina. It has been a whirlwind, honestly, for the Gamecocks over the last couple of weeks. We all know that. We've seen coaches depart. We've seen coaches hired. We've seen players leave. We've seen transfers come in. This has been I don't know if I would call it rocky necessarily for Shane, because we don't know what the process has been for him to be able to combat some of these different situations. Like, he might have already had game plans set up. He might have known some of this was coming. We don't have the answers to those questions. So it's hard for me to call it rocky without knowing fully what's going on. But we can certainly call it inconvenient because, he came in and he selected certain members of the former staff to stick around. I've seen some people say, he should have just fired that whole staff and just gone and done his own thing. I don't agree with that at all, because I think that Mike Peterson and Des Kitchings, whom are both still on staff, are excellent football coaches who do want to be at South Carolina, and they need to be. If he can retain them, they need to be. I don't know that Tracy Rocker loss is an enormous loss. I don't know that. As the dust has settled, we look back on what we saw this year. They didn't play that well on the defensive line. Is that all his fault? No. Is that all the players' fault? No. Is there probably a combination of both? Yeah, I think so. When you lose a guy like Javon Kinlaw, you're probably going to take a little bit of a step back anyways. So there's probably a lot of blame to go around there. But here's the thing. The way that this happened is BS, flat out. And you've seen my reaction over the last 2 months to all this. As steady Eddie, I think, as many of us can be. Number one, we have a job to do here. But at the same time, as opposed to keyboard warriors and message board heroes, I try to see both sides of all of these situations. The Mike Bobo thing, the way that it transpired, the information that I have, not the greatest look for Mike Bobo, but he decided he had a better opportunity, wanted to go. It's a worse look for Will Friend, and it's an even worse look for Tracy Rocker. Here's the way I see this. There's a lot of trained professional coaches on this staff under Will Muschamp. Really good ones. Guys who've run the gamut in this league. They understand it, but they also know how it works. And they know that getting Board of Trustees approved contracts is going to help you get another job somewhere, and it's going to also get you more money. And it's going to get you more money in places that can afford to pay you more money. Like, I don't know, Auburn, who has money. They go out there. There must be some random desert I don't know about in Alabama, but they've got money stashed all over that state. And they just dig it up and go get wherever the hell they want to go get. And I think what you're seeing here, Will Muschamp, there are people, Darren, who've said things like, these guys were all part of a 2-8 team. Have them. He had really good coaches on this staff. There were really good coaches on this staff. But were they the right coaches for South Carolina? Who are they the right coaches for? Or are they just kind of SEC league lifers who know that they can continue to kind of spin the wheels and grind their gears in this league and get paid and know how to work the system to get more money and take that next job? There's a lot of guys who've bounced around this league. We've seen it for a long time. Lance Thompson was one of them. The guy came in with Will Muschamp on his initial staff, right? One of the best defensive line coaches in the country. Never stayed anywhere for very long. Really knew how to work those contracts and get more money in other places. There's a lot of professionalism going on behind the scenes with some of these guys. It stinks to lose coaches when you're not maybe expecting to. I personally think all this is for the better, whomever their roles are filled with, and some of them have already been filled. I know there's not enough information out there to really know exactly what Marcus Satterfield's going to do and the new defensive coordinator, Coach White, and things like that, Clayton White. We'll have to see. But as far as somebody that really is going to be invested in your program and not just trying to take you to the cleaners, I think you're starting to see some of that stuff ushered out of the program, and it's unfortunate it was ever there.
It's easy to say now in hindsight, like, oh, wow, that must have been the best 2-8 team ever, right? I mean, that's a very popular joke, sentiment, whatever, being thrown around on the internet. But we've talked about the importance of a cohesive staff and everybody working together, same goals, same like-minded type individuals. So it is more than possible, especially when you look at the record and the performance on the field, that whatever was going on in that room wasn't exactly cohesive, to use the exact same word. I mean, there were certainly issues going on behind the scenes that led to play that was lackluster at times, at best at times, and significantly worse at other times. So maybe this is for the best. Maybe this is an opportunity for Beamer to get the guys he's comfortable with. He has said that Clayton White had other offers. He had to compete to get Clayton White from Western Kentucky down to Columbia. Marcus Satterfield was clearly high up on his list. But as JC said on the program yesterday, it's not as though anybody forced Beamer to keep these guys.
No.
He was not forced to keep these guys. He had a choice, and chose to keep these guys, even though the optics may tell you differently. He had a choice and chose to keep these guys. So there is the perception that's out there that things are off to a little bit of a rocky start, like you said, and that's fair.
That.
Yes,
that absolutely
is
fair.
It's a fair sentiment. And now you got to see how the staff that's been put together fixes that, and how that staff that's been put together moves forward together and with the guys and instilling their belief and their culture into that team, because it does feel like the guys who have been hired and the guys that we have heard from who have spoken publicly, Satterfield, White, Stepp, it feels like they are in line with each other. It feels like they're all on a very similar page. Whether they were all on that page prior with Bobo and Friend, I don't know, but it certainly feels like they're on that page now, and now it's a wait and see.
Yeah, and look here, hey, it's fair to say this. The biggest question is, can these guys coach in the SEC?
Yep.
That's the biggest question. I understand that. I mean, that is beyond fair, and I have the utmost respect for Shane Beamer, whom I know. I know Eric Kimry, and the rest of these guys, I don't really know them at all. I don't know any of them. But I know that Pete Limbo was regarded as one of the best special teams coaches in the country. That's not me saying that, or J.C. Sherbert, or David Cloninger, or Wes Mitchell, or whomever you might consider a homer in this state. That's true. That's just flat out true. Des Kitchings, the guy who wanted to be here for a long time, but he was at NC State prior to Will Muschamp getting him, quote, home. Remember, he's from here as well. And this is a guy who's regarded as one of the better running backs coaches in the region. And as time goes on, I think it'll be across the country. There was literally one thing good this year for Carolina, and it was Kevin Harris.
Yeah.
And the whole in running back room, they all did a really wonderful job. When Marshawn Lloyd went down, nobody expected much. And look what you got.
Yeah.
It was the best group on the field. And he's still there. Mike Peterson's a guy who's been regarded as one of the better linebackers coach in this league for quite some time. But his role at Carolina was not strictly just linebackers. He had to do other things in the prior system. And it looks like it's going to shift to where he's going to be able to focus on linebackers, which we're going to get to one here in a moment. You know, he got Justin Stepp, one of the hot up and coming. The guy was an SEC wide receivers coach. I mean, he's coming home. I mean, these are good coaches. I love Eric Kimry.
Mm-hmm.
I love him. And I think Eric would tell you this is a fair question to ask. We'll see how it works out for Eric Kimry.
Mm-hmm.
He's never coached college football before. We can talk about his philosophies all we want to. And that's fine. And that's great. And that you have to make those points because that's why he's there. But he's never coached. He's never recruited at this level. So it's fair to question how that's going to work out. And I'm being fair to Eric because I think it's going to work out. But it's fair for people to question whether it will or not. It's fair to question Shane. He's never been a head coach. I think it'll work out for him. I do. But if someone walks up and says, you're wrong, I can't disagree with them because we don't know the answer to the question yet.
It's like Gene Sapakoff's article, right? Sapakoff mentioned he has this article coming out comparing this coaching staff to Moneyball.
It came out today.
Right,
I read it.
Right.
It's wonderful.
And the Oakland A's. So it's very similar, the line you're going down now. It's in some ways an experiment here. You've got guys, it is very fair to question whether or not it's going to be successful, both on an individual basis and as a collective group. You almost have to question whether or not it's going to be successful, and then it's up to you to decide what you believe, and then we'll see it play out on the field. But of course it's a fair question. Kimmery, I'm sure, will acknowledge that. It's the same thing with Urban Meyer. Is it going to work in Jacksonville? I don't know. He's never been an NFL head coach. It's the same exact type of idea. It's something new. It feels like it's a fit because Kimmery's been around Columbia. He's loved by Gamecock lore and Gamecock family and everything around there. So does it seem like a fit? Sure. Can he coach tight ends and recruit to the SEC? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's not any more of a crapshoot than when Tom Herman was hired at Texas, or for that matter, anywhere else. I mean, let's be honest. When Will Muschamp was hired at Florida, everybody thought, oh, my gosh, here they come. This was the head coach in waiting at Texas under Mac Brown, right? I mean, he was like the deal. He was the deal. You don't ever know how these things are going to work out. I mean, Coach Muschamp, I respect him, and he put together an all-star staff at Carolina. It didn't work. It didn't work. Now, this might be an all-star staff too, and we just don't know about that. Clayton White and Marcus Satterfield have a track record of success.
Yep.
They don't have a track record of success in the Southeastern Conference. All right, so there's some positives and negatives for everybody, and we'll see who the final couple of hires are going to be. Here we go. 2 steps forward, 1 step back with the departure of Tracy Rocker. But I say all that to say this. What this is doing right now, in my opinion, is creating a bunker type mentality for South Carolina football. I mean, this is exactly what it's doing. If you are a fan of Carolina football, if you are a player in the program, if you're a coach in the program, if you have anything about you connects you to South Carolina football, there is now, everybody's used that term, chip on the shoulder, and that's fine. It's a bunker type mentality. You're looking around going, this is who's in here. And if you're not in this bunker, then you're just probably not in it with us. And that's what's happening. Like the way some of this is unfolded with some of these coaches leaving over the last week or so, Darren, the way some of the players left this program and trashed it, the way that former players who are successful in this program have spoken up and defended it, former coaches, we've had them on our show, like G.A. Mangus, have spoken up and defended it. This is a mentality that is necessary to be able to come out of a 6-16 2-year span under Will Muschamp. You can't get out of it unless you all collectively are looking at each other saying, you know what, screw all of you, every freaking one of you. We're going to get out of this together. It's going to start with the coaches and the players, and the fans have to take all of this pessimism, frustration, the ticked offness that has just kind of been ingrained in you over the last couple of years, and you have to push that or regurgitate that back out in an optimistic support of this program. And, when you get the occasional Clemson fan or Georgia fan or Bama fan or whatever, just speaking to the fans directly here, when they tell you how much you suck, you look at them and say, I don't really give a damn what you think. Why don't you worry about your own program? Screw you. Who cares? I mean, and that's exactly where Shane is kind of coming from with this. You don't want to be here? I don't give a crap what you've done in your career. See ya. I don't care. And he's establishing that chip on the shoulder bunker mentality right now. And you're either going to hop in the bunker or you're not. And if you're not going to do it, that's fine. That's okay. But this group's going to move forward, and he's bringing a bunch of dudes on. And I think that's one of the things when you look at some of these kids that he signed, I know I'm being long-winded here, or is signing, the linebacker that just committed from Georgia State, just led the country in sacks, by the way, 10.5. These two kids that could be coming from St. Francis as quarterback, 6'8" wide receiver duo together. And there's going to be others. And by the way, he's really in on it with some high-profile transfers from Power 5 programs that I am aware of. But what he's finding as players who are talented players who have something to prove, that's what he's finding right now. That's like if somebody called you and I today and said, y'all are really good. You know what? Y'all are like really, and I'm not saying that we are, but if someone called and said, y'all are really good, you know what we're going to do? We're gonna put you on in Atlanta, and you and I look at each other and go, holy cow. We have one of two options here. We're either going to succumb to the pressure, or are we built differently where we're like, we'll go to Atlanta and prove everybody that what's in Atlanta sucks and we're better than them. He's looking for that kid right now. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to jump, but you jump and bring that with you.
The kids he's bringing in and the coaches that he's brought in. What I just talked about what the coaches have said and how it feels as though they're on the same page in that room. When you hear those coaches talk, they're echoing that bunker mentality. They're not using that term. They're not necessarily using chip on the shoulder, although it may have been said once or twice, but they're giving all the other indications. It's, look, we're moving forward. This is home. We're going to establish something here. If you're looking at the negatives, bye. If you don't want to be here, bye. Yeah. Come on down. Let's do this thing together. And that's what they've been selling. So whoever comes in as the defensive line coach, I guarantee you, when he's introduced to the media, he's going to sell that exact same thing, because that's what we're hearing out of Beamer. That's what we're hearing out of the coaches, the guys that he is bringing in, the transfers he's bringing in. You pointed out something to prove. Yeah, I'm going to give you an opportunity to go prove that. And if you can prove that, not only have you done it for yourself, but you've elevated this program to a point where it's only been a time or two before.
Right.
So here's an opportunity in front of you if you want to go take it and run with us.
Yeah, and just so happens some of the guys that helped it get there before, one of them happens to be leading the program now. And yeah, I agree. And it's, this is no shot at Will Muschamp. As you know, you've sat right here. We've had Will on this program. I've spoken to him for 5 years. I wish the best for Will Muschamp. I really do. I think he is a really good man. I really do. That's how I feel. Some of you might feel different. I like Will Muschamp, and I hope he has a wonderful future, him and his wife and their family. But he also said something in his press conference that sounded great. Hey, I can sell ice to an Eskimo. I can sell this program. You don't have to sell ice to Eskimos with a lot of the guys on this staff. It's just going to come out. Like, they're not pitching anybody anything. It's like, this is just how I feel. Is that I've always felt like this. It's just different. So
the whole ice to Eskimo thing, it bugs me sometimes when I hear that. Like, I don't want you to sell ice to an Eskimo. I want you to convince that Eskimo that he needs to go drive to the desert and succeed in the desert. Right. I don't need you to go sell him something where he's already comfortable. I need you to take him somewhere different and succeed somewhere different.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Not to get off on too much of a tangent there, but that's kind of my take on what's going on here. And we'll see. Probably going to have some news before the end of the week. More news for South Carolina and filling out this staff. So certainly you should keep your eyes peeled, and we will do the same. All right, it is time for a timeout. Reminder, it's Thursday. If you're in the low country of South Carolina, buy one, get one half off foot-long cheesesteaks at DB's Cheesesteaks, which is the #1 rated cheesesteak joint anywhere. You voted for it, #1. I mean, they're #1 this year. It was right there. It said #1, DB's Cheesesteaks. Do yourself a favor. Just go to the website, look at the menu. dbscheesesteaks.com. You can order delivery, pick it up in West Ashley and Avondale, whatever you need to do. Just look at the menu, make your mouth water, and then put in your order at DB's Cheesesteaks, dbscheesesteaks.com. My favorite buffalo chicken cheesesteak, by the way. Don't forget the boardwalk fries. All right, Cory McCartney up next. More on Urban Meyer, his thoughts on the national championship game. How about Bill O'Brien back in college football? We're going to get to that. We'll ask him about the Gamecocks, see what he thinks as well, and much, much more. You won't believe, if you haven't heard, what a Mickey Mantle baseball card just sold for. You won't believe this. It's unbelievable. You won't believe it because it's unbelievable. That's why.
It's not cheap.
Yeah. Nice job, James. All right, we're going to hit a timeout. We'll be right back.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
To have a radio station everyone loves.
I love them a lot.
JB and Darren.
I love you, man. I love you too, bud. I love you, dude. I love you, bro Montana. I love you, Holmes. I love you, Broseph Glibbles. I love you, Machacha. I love you, Tico Brohe.
Okay. Let's continue here.
On the JB and Goldwater Show.
12:34. Welcome back. Edwin McCain rolling us right along here on this Thursday afternoon, January the 14th. Thank you for watching and listening and joining the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. here on this beautiful day. It's gorgeous. Finally, for the first time this week. All right, Darren's to the right. I'm to the left. And right smack dab in the middle, that handsome gentleman who's into CrossFit. That is Cory McCartney over in Atlanta, Georgia. What's up, man?
He's been haunting my morning, so I'm glad you didn't play Shawn Mendes when I came in.
Why has Shawn Mendes been haunting your morning?
Do I even know who that is? Who is that?
I don't know. I'm not a music guy.
Who's Shawn Mendes?
I had two boys, right? And a few months ago, McDonald's had the Travis Scott meal, and they're all into Travis Scott, so we had to go get the Travis Scott meal. I got an email today from Chipotle that they now have a Shawn Mendes bowl. And so I start thinking about tie-ins with music and fast food. So I start thinking about the Humpty Dance, right?
Oh,
what did he do in a Burger King best? So I think that's the next easy collaboration. So I put it out on Twitter. I did not tag Shawn Mendes. I have about 32,000 impressions on this. I've got over 30 comments, 100. I'm getting nonstop quote tweets from Shawn Mendes fan sites now. So apparently I'm in the fold. I'm a flagship member of the Shawn Mendes fan club. Although I could not name one of his songs, I'm very much in the works right now.
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea who that is. I'm probably
tweet, man. Be careful what you tweet. Even if trying to be funny, and I just got 8 more. So this is nonstop. So
well,
and it has tomatoes in it, and the fans are mad because he has tomatoes in his bowl. But he's
heavens.
Well, that's earth shattering. You can't eat tomatoes in it. You just can't do that. Tomatoes can't be good for you, right? No.
Talk sports and not fester on Shawn Mendes any longer.
Speaking of tomatoes, I'm looking forward to the summer because I love a good tomato sandwich in the summer.
There you
go. Love tomato sandwiches. All right, Cory. The news breaking today is that it's expected Urban Meyer to head to Jacksonville and take over the Jacksonville Jaguars. I asked Darren earlier, hey, why Jacksonville for Urban Meyer? A guy who's won national championships at 2 of the best programs in college football. He's been courted by some of the elite programs out there, Texas most recently. If you wanted to get back into college football, he certainly could. If he wants to go to the NFL, why head to Jacksonville? I have some other theories, but I wanted to get your initial take on that. If that's where he's going, which it looks like it, why there?
So much money. And this is the same family that owns Fulham Football Club. They own AEW, which they got on TNT now and are knee deep in professional wrestling. This family has so much money. They're willing to invest in things and stick with those things. So, Fulham's a perennial loser obviously playing very well in the EPL, but an upstart wrestling company, and these guys invest and they stick with things. So I think that's a big reason. You go to it and understand that you're going to have the most cap space in the league this year. You're going to have the number 1 pick in the draft, 11 draft picks overall. You're going to have a huge talented roster. I think if you're going to do it and you can go somewhere where you can make your own legacy as opposed to trying to live up to somebody else's and a lot of different NFL franchises you would go to, I think from that end, it makes a lot of sense for Urban Meyer.
You mentioned the money. Any word? I think it was the last week we heard maybe like $12 million a year or something. That's what they pay Belichick. Is that feasible? Is that appropriate?
Has this is obviously this is a guy who's never coached in the NFL, right. But this is a guy who has been extremely successful everywhere he's been. I think certainly you're going to be probably talking north of 10 million. I have a hard time believing he's not going there. I mean, think about if he had taken the Texas job. What would Texas have paid to get Urban Meyer? Did he use those bargaining chips as potential college programs that would, because he's been bandied about at USC for the longest time whenever they decided to move on from Clay Helton. So it's going to be in Belichick neighborhood, probably not that much, but I would imagine it's going to be in that neighborhood.
All right. When you look back at some of the best coaches to ever coach college football, take that next step. Nick Saban didn't work out. Steve Spurrier didn't work out. It's certainly worked out for Pete Carroll, didn't work out for Chip Kelly and others. How do you compare Urban Meyer to some of his predecessors?
That's really going to be the biggest thing that you're going to think about with any college coach. You talk about this transition. I mean, we're obviously seeing Matt Rule right now, with the Panthers. I mean, Pete Carroll went back and forth. Remember, he was in the NFL before he went to USC and then went back to the NFL. Jim Harbaugh did very well. I kind of think of him more along the lines of Jimmy Johnson. I don't necessarily think of Urban Meyer as a an upper echelon X and O's kind of guy. I think of him as a guy who, it's the players want to play for him. It's the coolest guy in the room kind of vibe. That's a little more Jimmy Johnson to me than it is, he's somebody when you think about it being more of a technical. So I think he's going to put himself some really great coaches around him. I think that's been a lot of the chatter this morning. That a lot of the reason for this talks over the last month taking this long is that he's trying to make sure he can put the kind of staff around him he wants around him. But I wouldn't count him out. Being successful there, especially when you think about having more than likely the number 1 pick in the draft in Trevor Lawrence to tutor. He's obviously been a bit of a quarterback whisperer going back to his days at my alma mater, Bowling Green. I mean, this is a guy who's done it everywhere. I would not count him out doing it in the NFL.
You set this question up perfectly. You mentioned Trevor, probably at this point in time, heading to Jacksonville as the top pick. And you mentioned his staff. There are some rumors out there, and at this point in time, I can't confirm anything more than that Tony Elliott, who's currently the offensive coordinator with Clemson, could be getting a look in Seattle under Pete Carroll in the same exact role. But why not maybe Jacksonville? Tony Elliott is from James Island, South Carolina, which is 10 minutes from where currently Darren and I are sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's a South Carolina guy. Jacksonville's 4 hours south of here. Do you think that is a name that could possibly surface to be on the Urban Meyer staff, coaching the same guy who's been coaching for the last 3 years, and Trevor Lawrence?
Found out him tying back to his Florida roots too. Thinking about a lot of the guys that he had, relationships with down there that maybe he could bring back into the fold as well. But yeah, I think that continuity, certainly is going to be key for Lawrence because I'm sure he's going to get every opportunity to start day one down there in Jacksonville, and it's going to be fascinating to see what kind of a staff he puts together because I think this has been a question with him. I mean, remember the final days for him at Ohio State. There was a lot of talks about whether he was going to take the Cleveland Browns job. So now he's finally in the fold in the NFL, and we'll see what Urban Meyer's capable of.
You said a little bit ago that you think of him more of a Jimmy Johnson. Players want to be around him, not necessarily an X's and O's guy. But I said it a little while ago as well. I mean, Bowling Green, then Utah, then Florida, then Ohio State. He's continually evolved. And yes, he's had a staff with him that's been, good staff everywhere he's been. But it seems to me that he's got that X and O thing down, or is it the guys that are around him that are doing that more so than he is?
He sets the template. I mean, certainly we think about the advent of the spread option. I mean, he was at the very center of that with Tebow and that thing really taking off when they won their first national championship in Florida. So, I think you've seen him, obviously be somebody who's been, at the revolution, but I think he's always also been somebody who's been smart enough to surround himself, with people that helped to evolve his game. I mean, remember it was Ryan Day that was one doing the play calling at the very end for him in Columbus, and we see the success that Day's continue to have with Ohio State. I mean, obviously Dan Mullen, was very much a key part of what he was doing at Florida and stops in Utah before that. Kyle Whittingham, and he's always had guys. I mean, look, the Urban Meyer coaching tree is vast and has been pretty successful for a reason. He set the template, but certainly these guys have learned from him and helped his game evolve.
Cory McCartney on Twitter at Cory J. McCartney in Atlanta, Georgia. Is this a long-term decision? Is this his final decision? Thoughts on either of those questions?
I mean, I think he's always kind of been a bit of a nomad, right? I mean, I think, when he days and before that he was at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame was supposed to be the dream job. He took Ohio State, and then that was the dream job. I don't know if there's anything that can lure him back to college. If it is USC, if it ultimately is Notre Dame, I don't see him sticking long term anywhere. I just don't think that's him. But I will be very intrigued to see what he's capable to do at this level, because one of the things you got to remember with him is health was an issue for a while, right? I mean, you think back to that SEC championship game where he was in the hospital after Florida lost to Alabama. I mean, ultimately ends up with him leaving Gainesville up in at Ohio State, but a lot less stress when you're an NFL coach in terms of having to go out and recruit and make those phone calls and get out the recruiting trail. So I would imagine from a health standpoint, this is a situation that could be much more to his liking in terms of a little bit less stress, but obviously new kinds of stress.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Darren and I talked about that at the top. Little interesting nugget here, and I'll leave it at this because we're moving on to discuss this program. But if Urban Meyer is in the NFL for the next, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is, next few years, and then decides that that's not for him, but he does want to keep coaching, maybe head back to the college ranks, might be right in line when Nick Saban's hanging it up down there in Tuscaloosa. I don't know. Like, you don't want to be the guy to follow Nick Saban, but if you're Urban Meyer, why the hell not, right?
Right. I don't know. He seems to me to be a guy who, doesn't necessarily want to follow, doesn't want to be the guy behind the guy. He wants to be the guy behind the guy after the guy. So, yeah, I can't.
That's a good point.
The guy behind the guy after the guy.
Yeah, you always want to be after Ron Zook, not Urban Meyer, not Nick Saban. Certainly. All right. There is news out of Tuscaloosa. It looks like Bill O'Brien's going to be back in college football. He will take over the Alabama Crimson Tide offense, which this year was maybe the best offense in the history of college football after last year's LSU offense, which was pretty much the best offense in the history of college football. So some really big shoes to fill, certainly. But Bill O'Brien's name has surfaced with a lot of jobs. Darren, of course, you know Bill O'Brien quite well from his time at Penn State. Spent a lot of time with the Houston Texans, but now it looks like it'll be in the SEC. Your thoughts on that fit with the Tide?
The OC at Duke. He was the OC at Georgia Tech. This job has been reclamation grounds for a lot of guys. I mean, think about obviously Lane Kiffin, now Steve Sarkisian. Now we get a chance to see what Bill O'Brien is going to be capable of. I think kind of. And, we obviously know how limited the availability is for assistant coaches when you coach under Saban. I think it allows these guys just a chance to get back to football and, figure out, what works so well for them in terms of being a coach. So I think this has an opportunity to not only be successful for Alabama, but also be something, in a very short time that we start hearing Bill O'Brien's name in terms of head coaching jobs again, be it at the NFL or in the college level.
We were hearing that from the beginning of this coaching cycle in this offseason. Every opening that came about, his name was floated around. And I said on the show, I don't know if that's his agent trying to get him into a certain spot. I don't know if he's trying to angle for more money somewhere, even though he doesn't currently have a job. But he was mentioned for almost every opening around, at least on the periphery of it. So my sense was that he was trying to get back in, and it wouldn't shock me at all if he is going to take this route through Alabama to then maybe head up another program somewhere.
Utah State, or do you want to get a job at a Power 5 program, right? And if you're a guy who's failed at the NFL level and you're looking to get back, and you're not a hot commodity, but if you go to Alabama and you do exactly what Kiffin did and you do exactly what Sark did, you in terms of your name out there wanting to go to a program. So I think this really has an opportunity for him to get back in a lot of good graces and reestablish himself. I think this is probably the smartest move for Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, I agree. And, I wouldn't even necessarily call him I'm not saying that you were, but I wouldn't even necessarily call him a failure at the NFL level. I know it didn't work out, but the guy was 52-48. He coached in Houston for 7 seasons. He made the playoffs 4 times.
The GM part did not work.
No, it didn't. But I mean, we've seen a lot of guys jump to the NFL. I mean, Steve Spurrier was a failure in the NFL. So was Nick Saban. I mean, Bill O'Brien had a hell of a career when compared to those guys and some of the other ones. I actually look at his head coaching career in college, although it's not as extensive as Steve Sarkisian's. It's kind of similar in a way that you never really knew what Steve Sarkisian was going to do with his opportunity at Southern Cal because it didn't work out. I mean, he had some issues going on, and he ended up not being able to coach anymore. And Bill O'Brien only spent 2 years at Penn State, so we really didn't know what was to come. I mean, he needed more time to truly build his program. So if he does become a head coach in college football again one day, I think he'll have a shot at being a really good one, but we just don't know because there's not that proven track record as a head coach yet at the collegiate level.
The situation that he stepped into at Penn State, I mean, after the Jerry Sandusky scandal, I mean, it's
remarkable.
Of players, he had to try to build that thing back up. I mean, had he stuck around, I mean, we saw what James Franklin was very early able to do in Happy Valley, I would imagine, he would have been very much some of the similar results. So not saying he was a failure at the NFL, but certainly, if you're trying to convince boosters to help with a buyout or to help with, trying to get a guy to come into your program, a guy who did not have success at the end of his NFL career and is coming back into college football. I mean, it's a little bit harder sell. So I think this is the right move for him.
Yeah. What's fascinating about that is I know that they went 0-4 this year before he got let go. But prior to that, they were 21-11 combined in those 2 years, 2018 and 2019, which was the best 2-year run of his tenure in Texas. But I like Bill O'Brien. I think he's going to be a good fit with Nick Saban, certainly at Alabama. Look, I don't know how much you've dug into this, but just wanted to get some quick thoughts on this from a national perspective, like you have with what's been going on in Columbia over the last week. We've seen Mike Bobo and Will Friend, who departed after just 2 weeks on the job, and now Tracy Rocker. They've just left South Carolina and headed over to Auburn. I know you've kept your eyes on what Shane Beamer's been doing in Columbia, South Carolina. Just wanted to get a little bit of your perspective on the challenges that he's had in putting together his staff with the Gamecocks.
Great too, in terms of, obviously was a Florida defensive backs coach and, let go after their issues in the national title game, the SEC title game. But yeah, I mean, this is, you knew Beamer was going to surround himself with the right people and people. I mean, he obviously is learning from, one of the best resources any first-time head coach could potentially ever learn from in his Hall of Fame father. So, yeah, I mean, he's jumping right into the deep waters there in the toughest conference in the nation. So, surrounding himself with the right kind of people is going to be key in him.
Did we lose Corey? You there, Corey?
His AirPods, I think, are going in and out here a little bit.
Okay. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, okay. Okay. There you are. All right. You trailed off there at the end, but I agree with what you say. Yeah. Surrounding himself with the right people is most important for him. It appears some of whom he'd asked to stay over from Will Muschamp's staff, maybe not have been the right guys, but they're gone now. And that staff almost complete. We'll come back to that conversation with David Cloninger here in hour number 2, but I want to move backwards as well to the national championship played on Monday night. Alabama 52-24. Is there anything in your mind, Corey, that could have been on Ohio State's sideline, players that obviously, Trey Sermon going down was a huge knock, but had he stayed healthy, had some of those guys who were out because of COVID contact tracing and things like that, if they were eligible to play, could any of that help change the outcome of this ball game?
Yeah, I think certainly it could have been, a point differential there. I mean, losing Sermon that early, was demonstrative to Ohio State's offense, and the defensive line losses that moved the line up minutes before the game started. So I don't think there was any changing the fact that Alabama was going to win that game. I mean, if anything, Devontae Smith not being out there for almost the entire second half, was the opening Ohio State needed to try to find some semblance of rhythm offensively. They just couldn't get anything done and could not match. What, as you guys mentioned before, just an all-time kind of offense with Jones, Smith, and Najee Harris.
We were discussing Devontae Smith at length for good reason, trying to compare him to various different receivers, trying to project the success in the NFL. Who would you compare Devontae Smith to?
It's a good question. Obviously smaller guys. So you're not talking about a Calvin Johnson, DK Metcalf kind of player. I hate to go to Desmond Howard, but they're similar builds. Smaller guy. I just don't know that there's anybody that just jumps off the page when you start thinking about a smaller wide receiver that's had a ton of success. I mean, most of the guys that have been all-time wideouts, Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens. I mean, these are bigger body receiver. I'll tell you what, Steve Smith. There you go. We're gonna stick with the same last name. I'm gonna go. Steve Smith is maybe the guy that I would liken most to him.
I like that.
To the ability, the ability, have those fast twitch to be able to get away from defenders. Obviously the premier route running. I think that's my best comp is Steve Smith.
Yeah, I was texting with my friend. Pat, who Pat DeMarco is quite well. Spent a lot of time in Atlanta. Still lives there. Pat and I were texting during the ball game on Monday night, And we were asking each other the same question. I asked Pat, and he was like, dude, I don't know. I said, well, you're around NFL wide receivers for the last 10 years. Come up with somebody. I came up with like a younger Deshaun Jackson, but I think this guy's career is going to be better than Deshaun Jackson's.
Obviously, you worry about a guy that's a little bit smaller and that that slim, being able to take the constant punishment, because this is a guy that I think a lot of times you're going to see him inside. I mean, I know he's fast, but is that somebody you really can put out wide in the NFL consistently? I think that is he receiver, so he's going to get every opportunity to be a megastar at the next level, and I don't think anybody's doubting. I mean, that his Heisman speech. One of my favorites in a long time, just talking about doing it for the little guy. So being intrigued with that question to see what he can do.
Cory McCartney, just a couple minutes left and we'll let you run here. Cory, both of these teams, both of these programs are losing incredible talents as we venture into 2021. Spring practice right around the corner, believe it or not. And then, of course, on into the season this fall. But is there anything that tells you that Alabama or Ohio State won't be right back here in this 4-team playoff come next year?
I obviously think, with Bryce Young, who you saw late in the Alabama game, I mean, there were people who thought he might have beaten out Mac Jones for that starting job. Ohio State's going to lose a lot offensively. I mean, they could potentially, Olave is going to be gone. Obviously, Justin Fields, Trey Sermon, they could be losing, just a number. I think Alabama's a no-brainer. I wouldn't be surprised to see them start out number 1 or number 2. In 2021. So I think you can at least pencil them in, but I have a little bit more questions about Ohio State right now.
All right, a couple quick notes on baseball here before we let you run. I know I've actually got or I had it. There it is. There's a column that I pulled up on talkingchop.com that was written by Cory McCartney that came out today, right at noon, as a matter of fact, and it's titled "Starting 9 as Braves Circle." I can't even pronounce that. Ambioris Tavares, right? Tavares, breaking down their best international signings. And I didn't get a chance to read this in its entirety. I was kind of glancing through it. Can you kind of I want people to go to talkingchop.com who are Braves fans, and they do need to read this. This looks very interesting. But what are you referencing here? What is this column about?
The international signing period was actually delayed because of the pandemic. Normally it opens in July. They actually delayed the 2020-2021 period to start tomorrow. You remember the Braves had those sanctions placed against them when John Coppolella had his scandal and was exited in 2017, banned for baseball. So last year they were not allowed to sign. Every team gets international pool money. Last year they were not allowed to sign anybody over $10,000. So they basically had nothing to play with. Can't get any premier international prospects that way. Starting tomorrow, they have 50% of their pool, which is 1.57 million. So the expectation is tomorrow they're going to get this infielder Tavares, Venezuelan. The best opportunity they've had in an international prospect since Kevin Maitan, who was the guy who was at the center of that 2016 scandal that they ended up losing him. So it's been a while since the Braves have been players at the international level, but that could change tomorrow. Next year, obviously, the cuff's completely off. But this is a big step because they have not been able to make any noise in the international level the past couple of years.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's good. It's great, and it actually ranks, as I just mentioned a moment ago, but ranking essentially the best international signings in Braves history. And you might recognize some of these names. Pretty good ones, as a matter of fact. See where Andrew Jones and Ronald Acuna Jr. are ranked according to Cory McCartney, talkingchop.com. And finally, I don't know how heavy your pockets are today, but I have a hunch they might be about $5 million lighter. Was it you that purchased the Mickey Mantle baseball card for $5.2 million?
The CBD shop called CBD. A ton of money in CBD products. Not that you can spend $5 million in a Mickey Mantle card. So I'm in the wrong.
But
now,
here's what's interesting about this. It took the record the previous record was $3.94 million for a baseball card, which
was Honus Wagner.
No, it was a Mike Trout rookie card. How is that even possible?
And obviously now, I mean, they didn't have this when we were kids, but now you can get cards graded, right? So they put them in those pockets and they say like mint on them, and they've been great. They're worth so much more that way. So you think about scary. and premier, pristine, pristine quality of the car. Yeah, 3.9. Wow.
3.94 million. That record lasted all of 5 months.
I have thousands of baseball cards about a foot to my left, and I just need to go through the box, and I just haven't done it.
I've got a bunch too.
Yeah,
maybe I should do that.
Buddy, we were going to fund our retirement with baseball cards when we were kids, right? These guys are literally doing it. So
it's booming now. It wasn't booming then. It's booming now. I should look through them.
There's a reason why I saved them all. I should have done it. On that note, we'll let you run, Cory. Thank you so much for your time, my friend. What a crazy busy week it's been, and I've got a feeling 2021 has plenty more in store. We'll do it again next week. Have a wonderful weekend. There you go, Cory McCartney in Atlanta, Georgia, on Twitter at Cory J. McCartney. Time for a timeout. When we return, David Cloninger with the Posted Courier. Back to the Gamecocks we go. Take a deep dive with him into the football program and into hoops as well. You'll want to hear that conversation right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control. What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Cloninger, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit StonoFerryGolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. StonoFerryGolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Cloninger, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
Show. Live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour here on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. We're on the JB and Goldwater app and also at JBandGoldwaterShow.com, where you can watch and listen to our program for free. Darren, Jamie, and now David Cloninger with the Post and Courier on Twitter at DCPNC. Another member of the Gamecocks media that hadn't had a lot of sleep in a while, but he's been kind enough to wake up on time for our segment today. No, he's got a youngin' at home. He's been up. What's up, man?
Not too much, guys. In fact, I was just checking to see maybe if I need to follow some more Twitter accounts or if I need to go to the football ops building, because it's been very eerily quiet this morning. So, I don't know what's happening. Maybe everybody's just deciding to cut us all a break. Or maybe, they're deciding to, just go be the new coaching staff at Wasamatta U. I'm not real sure.
Man.
But, rest assured, I'm ready for whatever happens.
Man, I know. It's been strange because, just obviously since Coach Muschamp was let go, we've all had just a lot to kind of follow along with, and let's see where this thing, there's twists and turns, and then Shane is hired. But, the last, David, I'd say, I don't know, 3 weeks or so, like every day I don't know. For me, we just adjust and move on.
Mm-hmm.
For you, you have to plan out your columns and your articles, and you're investigating this and diving in on that. And how often are you changing gears with what's set to go in the paper the next day?
Every day. Really pretty much every day. And the fact is like every Sunday afternoon or so, I try to plan out a weekly budget and send it into the office so they know kind of what's coming. But never has the word tentative been used so much. Because no matter what I send in, it's like, okay, we're going to have to reschedule that. Okay, we're going to have to reschedule that. I had to do it just today. I wasn't planning to have a piece in the paper tomorrow before I run a weekend stuff. It's like, well, when Tracy Rocker decided to leave, that's the third coach to go to Auburn, so you got to write about that, and you see what's going on there. But it's I'd rather be too much happening than not enough. So you get it in and you wait for the next thing to pop.
Yeah, do us all a favor. If Auburn makes you an offer to come cover their football program, turn that down.
I would, because they closed down the War Eagle Supper Club down there, which was one of my favorite places of all time. So it's like, yeah, I'm not going there again. If I want to go see Auburn, I can just go 2 hours up the road to Clemson. It's kind of late.
That's right.
When you were,
not that I would enjoy it anymore.
When you weren't here yesterday, Jamie wasn't on the show yesterday. I got 2 messages. Did he go to Auburn too?
Yeah, no. Hey, look, DC, you know how it works. We've all been to Auburn. It's a neat little village on the plains. There's no doubt about that. But you got to stay in Opelika, and you go there and you see it, and you're ready to come home.
Well, like I said, man, right after you pull off at 85, there was a Comfort Inn or a Quality Inn, I forget which. It was right there off 85, and right next to that was the Waffle House, and then the War Eagle Supper Club. So I was set. I could go in and cover the games and then come back and just chill in my little area. But they closed the Supper Club down. So I'm like, well, I don't mind going to Auburn. At least it's quick. It's all interstate. Once you clear Atlanta, it's smooth sailing. But that was severely disappointing. Severely. Although Mama Goldberg's Deli is still open down there, and that's pretty good. So I guess I can live with it. And outside of that, covering baseball games down there, I've usually had a good time. They've got that one of those big green monsters out in left field,
right?
Like they do in Vanderbilt. But I'll tell you, man, that game was that park was Parker Bangs' personal playground.
Yeah.
That every time I saw that dude play there, he was launching stuff into that ball. It was great. I think he had something like 8 extra base hits one weekend.
I remember that. And Auburn. Auburn is. I learned a lot about their baseball program when Coach Pulowski and Scott Foxhall were down there running the show with them. And it's I've always respected Auburn's baseball program. I've always respected Auburn's football program until now. This is look. Everybody's got a take. DC. Everybody has a take. The internet. There's some factual pieces of information out there. A lot of it's hearsay, a lot of it's rumor, a lot of it's just not true. And I know that you've dug as deeply as you can on this, and you're at times just only going to get so much information. But it's if you're a South Carolina fan, like my advice is this: just get in the bunker with the football program, take that chip on the shoulder and turn it into positive energy and pull for the guys that are going to be with you, because you can't do anything about the ones that left. But the ones that left, like, just what is your take? Everyone has a take. What is your take, starting with the latest, Tracy Rocker, who essentially vanished in the middle of the night?
Well, honestly, guys, if you want to leave, that is perfectly fine. Everybody has the right to be happy, and you should be perfectly acceptable to move on if you feel you can be happier somewhere else. But there's a way to conduct yourself. And the way that these have been conducted have not been with the utmost class and dignity that they could have been. With Tracy Rocker, Auburn alum would never question about, like, okay, well, if your alma mater calls, okay, I understand. Yeah, feel free to wish you well. There has been a lot of misinformation about, well, he just packed up his stuff in the middle of the night. This wasn't a Baltimore Colts kind of thing.
Okay.
I mean, yes, he could have handled it better, but there were talks. He did talk to Shane Beamer, before he left. I mean, it wasn't quite as dastardly as it's being made out to be. That said, all three of these guys had their contracts approved a week ago last Monday, and all three of them left. So you look at it and say, well, put it this way. It's not good that Shane is filling his staff and then he has to go keep refilling his staff because guys keep leaving. That just doesn't look good no matter which way you cut it. That being said, you want guys that want to be here. If you have some guys, who maybe come in and express their desire to do it and don't want to be professional about it, fine, let them go. You're going to be better off without them. And it does need to be said, if Auburn wants to take coaches, two of which, contributed to a 2-8 season last year, okay, feel free. That's your business. You go right ahead. Not saying the USC won't miss them, but I'm looking at the results from last year and saying, well, I mean, it's hard to say you can't do any better. And also, the fact is that somebody at Auburn, if those coaches or somebody who's doing the hiring, owes USC $250,000.
Right.
So if you get that and you can go find replacements who work for cheaper than what you were paying, okay, well, I think everybody wins there. So, I mean, I realize what it all, looks like, and there's some that say, well, see, this is why you don't hire Shane Beamer, and some say, no, you need to go hire guys who want to be, everybody's got to have a take these days. Obviously Twitter's been in the news a lot lately.
Right.
I was, of the opinion that if you're going to start deleting accounts, go ahead and delete yourself all on Twitter. Because remember when we all used to just mind our own business?
Yep.
Wasn't that great?
Yep.
That was terrific. And see, now it's just a breeding ground for, everybody's going to have an opinion, everybody's going to put it out. If I didn't have to do it for work, I wouldn't use it. But this is just where it is. And, with USC football, it's like, listen, this is not a new occurrence. You have to fix one problem, and you get it fixed, then you move on to the next one and fix that one. And then you got to circle back around to the first one because that one broke again. So you're just finding out, it's like, look, this is what the job is. You're never going to have all of the built-in tradition, all of the built-in, well, this is the culture that other programs do just because they haven't won enough to do that. And you can certainly build it, but once you get there, sustaining it is a whole other matter.
But you're exactly right. I mean, we spoke with Coach Mangus last Friday on our show. He said the exact same thing here about South Carolina, but it was out of respect. It was from an area of, hey, look, we did a lot around here to try to build tradition and set new standards and things of that nature. And South Carolina certainly is working on that. And we'll see what it looks like moving forward. They still now, once again, have a couple of hires to make. Here's the thing, DC, with this staff. I mentioned to Darren earlier, and we've said this time and time again, I hope people understand we're being truthful. I fully understand those that question many of the coaches on this staff. I have no problem with that. I get it. Marcus Satterfield and Clayton White have spent zero time in this league and zero time coordinating either side of the football in this league. That's not true for Mike Peterson. It's not true for Des Kitchings. Obviously, now the two lone holdovers from the previous staff, and they have other experience as well. Eric Kimbrey's never coached in college football before. I know Eric. I respect him. I love him. I think he's going to be great. But it's Shane Beamer's never been a head coach. I understand people that want to question it. That's a fair question to ask until you see the results. But the one thing that you can at least circle with this staff is you are going to have a bunch of dudes that really want to be here and give a damn about South Carolina football. And it appears over the last couple of years, they've had a bunch of paid professionals who just know how to work board of trustees contracts in this league and get paid to go somewhere else.
Well, there you go, Jamie. I mean, you just put your finger on it. And the fact is, it's like, look, I've been saying this since the beginning. I think I've said it on your program a few times. With this particular team, it didn't matter who you were going to hire as your assistant coaches, because right now the roster is threadbare. You don't really have the players to show what you can do. Now, if they can somehow pull a lot of wins out of this group that they have coming back, that's assuming they don't find, a mine's worth of uncut gems in the transfer portal, then you deserve this credit. And I agree that some like, there's a lot of not proven guys. There's not a lot of names there. Well, you also do have to realize this. This, I think, is what a lot of USC fans just don't want to say, don't want to admit. They all want to find somebody who feels as passionate about USC athletics as they do. And the fact is, there are a lot of those. But in terms of coaches are men too. They have families too. They want to go somewhere where they can succeed. And right now, USC has not succeeded for a little while. The last time you could say they did was 2017 when they won 9 games. And it seemed to be on the upward trajectory, and then it wasn't. So you look at that and say, well, I don't want to get into a comparison here, but since Auburn's kind of the hot topic, well, you look at Auburn. So what do they got they don't got? Well, national championships, I mean, I think the draft picks are comparable. The SEC championships, okay. And I know a lot of the things like, well, USC's top 20 job. Well, you can say that in terms of, facilities and money and exposure in the SEC. But, in terms of winning, in terms of have you done it before, there isn't a lot of that. I'm not saying there can't be, but there isn't right now. So you have to go find guys who are willing to put in the work to do that. And when you get young, excitable guys who want to be part of the foundation of something, instead of just trying to come in and carry on, I think you've got something there. So this was always going to be a staff and a team that's going to have to grow, that's going to have to be given a lot of patience, just because, guys, things were not left in a very good place here from a roster standpoint. And that's what we're always going to be talking about. It's not going to be the coaches, it's the players that you can get. Because coaches look a whole lot smarter when the players are better.
You're right, and they lost Ryan Helinski to the transfer portal, and now they've lost Gunnar Stockton. I don't know that either one of those were shocking. Actually, I know they weren't shocking to me following the events that transpired with this staff, DC. What type of effort are we looking at here there's 2 quarterbacks on this roster, and one of them is going to be a true freshman in Colton Gauthier, who's a really good player, but he's never played. Luke Doty's barely played at South Carolina. What are you hearing? What type of efforts are they making to refill that quarterback room? Is it the transfer portal? Is it just recruiting high school kids? Is it a combination of both? Is Ryan Helinski maybe entertaining coming back? What are you hearing?
Well, first, you're forgetting Connor Jordan. That's the first QB that's going to be in that room now. Don't forget about him. Okay.
Sorry.
But with Ryan Helinski, it's recruiting and it's kids, and 20-year-olds have been known to change their mind. And I know Shane Beamer kind of left the possibility open-ended with the way he answered the question, but I'll tell you, it's very unlikely that happens.
Okay.
It's very unlikely that he comes back here. Okay. So just moving on from that. With the trying to get more quarterbacks, there's probably not many that you would particularly want among the high school ranks right now. So you do look at the transfer portal, and there are quite a few in the transfer portal. As soon as the Marcus Satterfield hire was announced, I was tipped. It said, you need to keep an eye on this guy. And I'm not going to throw out any names because everybody starts, pontificating and hitting this kid up. But he's been at a Power 5 school, and he's looking to transfer, and he's very close with Marcus Satterfield. So maybe that comes to pass. Obviously, there are a couple of guys, I believe it's a Division II level, who have been offered by South Carolina. And as soon as, I believe, all they're waiting on is the chance from USC, the university, to say, hey, you guys should come on. That could help. But really, the main thing now is that there's going to be some stars in the transfer portal. you're probably not going to be in great position to land them right now. Not saying you can't, but you're going to be behind some suitors for them. So you just have to really kind of depend on what I call the Dave Odom principle, and that's not a bad thing. You're looking for undiscovered gems. You're looking for guys that maybe didn't have the high rankings, but you know can be stars. And say what you want about Dave Odom, and you can always say that this principle didn't work a lot more than it did. But, you know, the guy found Tim Duncan when nobody knew who he was. Absolutely nobody knew. And he became one of the greatest players in college basketball history, greatest players in NBA history. So you can go through all that, and, you know, USC, Torrance Kinsey, Ronaldo Balkman, Mike Boynton. You know, you find guys like that who necessarily weren't recruited that high, but they turn into great players. They're going to do that on the football side here. Just go find somebody, and it's tough to differentiate the line, Jamie, between adding bodies and trying to get good players, because right now South Carolina needs bodies. You just have to go find some guys that will fill out this roster in spring, because, you know, you'd rather have too many than not enough. And if you're in the position where it's saying, well, you know, I don't know if this guy's going to play, but we can't cut him because we got to have the body, that's not a good place to be.
No.
So right now they just got to go and say, all right, look, where do you need the greatest help? And I wish that there were specific options that you could say outside quarterback, but really where they need help is you take the depth chart from last year and delete all of it and pretty much draw a circle around the whole all of it. That's where you need help. I mean, yeah, you got some guys coming back. I mean, Parker White and Luke Doty and JJ Unigbari. You know, I'm probably going to miss a few, but there are pieces that you have, but you need a whole lot more of them.
Yeah, you don't miss Kevin Harris. He ran for 1,200 yards this year.
Yeah. Yeah. How could I forget him? It's one of those things, man. I mean, you got Kevin Harris and Marshawn Lloyd. Like, that's a good three to build an offense around.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, it looks to me like if you're going to do that, you need to be a running team. So what linemen do you need to recruit? That kind of thing. But hey, I'm not in charge of running the offense. I would hope though that with Marcus Satterfield coming from the Panthers, where he had Christian McCaffrey, you know, he was hurt most of this year, but then he had Mike Davis. Like, okay, I mean, I think you know how to build a running attack. So
yeah,
you've got the guys to do that. Let's see what else you can put around them.
Right. Great point there with Mike Davis endorsed Marcus Satterfield as well. Yep. On
Mike
Twitter.
had a terrific year, man. I mean, in relief of Run CMC, you know, Mike had a great year, best year he's had in the NFL, and I thought that's really good for him. So, and you know, Mike has been kind of, you know, squirrely sometimes about which coaches he likes and which he doesn't. For him to endorse Marcus Satterfield, like, okay, well, I mean, the proof's right there. Look what he did in the NFL this year.
Yeah, well, you know, look, I want to give Mike a little credit here because I think Mike has said some things publicly, at least through some of these social media platforms that none of us, guys like you and I can't stand, you know, Twitter, that there's actually a lot of former players that thought. They just never came out and publicly said that because they didn't want to have to deal with the backlash of it, but Mike didn't care. He was one of them that said what he felt like saying. DJ Swearinger endorsed Torian Gray big time. And Torian Gray is now on staff. I want to use that as a transition into the defense here. I mean, you were right in the middle of this thing, the most successful tenure in the history of Carolina football when they won those 33 straight games. I know that, or straight games, 33 games in 3 years, and won the East in 2010. And I know that Ellis Johnson wasn't there for all of it, but he put it in place. That 4-2-5 defense. It looks like that's going to return. It looks like it. I know that Coach White has been, you know, let's just wait and see exactly what things are going to look like around here. But Clayton White seems to be leaning towards bringing his 4-2-5 scheme back to Columbia. If he does, DC, how do you think the talent? I know that they're trying to add names, and they just added a big one from Sean Elliott's squad in Georgia State, Jordan Strawn, the linebacker who led the country in sacks this year, 6'4", 225. But how does the rest of the talent that is on campus now that you've watched them play every snap for the last few years, how does that fit into a 4-2-5 scheme? I mean, JJ, Jordan Birch could be opposites each other at defensive end and things like that, but the rest of it really is up in the air. How do you see that as it stands here in January?
Well, you know, that's you do have to look at what they ran last year, and they didn't intend for it to be this way, but with the injuries at linebacker they had, they pretty much were running a 4-2-5. you had Ernest Jones and Damani Staley out there as your linebackers, and then you mostly utilized the nickel. So you had all those guys kind of rotating in and out, but that was mostly the scheme, even though that's not what it was intended to be. So you hear that 45, and of course you think of Ellis, and of course you think of that spur position, which I still remember one of Will Muschamp's first press conferences was like, "Are you going to utilize the spur?" And he kind of looked at me and was like, "Spur? That's the nickel, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, yeah, sure." I mean, they all got different terminology, whatever. But, he used it. It's just that with Ellis, you had those three guys in succession that were so good at it: Darian Stewart, Antonio Allen, Devontae Holland.
Yep.
And all three of those guys were amazing players here, and then they all went to the NFL. Obviously, Antonio and Devontae each got injuries, so they couldn't finish the NFL careers. But Stewie, played 10, 11 years, got a Super Bowl ring, and he's a guy that probably will figure into this coaching staff at some point. At least on an off the field role. So, you sit there and say, okay, well, you at least got the scheme down, but the best coaches are going to have to adapt their scheme to what they have. And right now, there's just not a whole lot known there. So you do have a transfer linebacker. You do have Igbari, which is great. You do have Birch, which is great. Zach Pickens, which is great. Damani Staley coming back. Okay, but who replaces that Ernest Jones spot? You pretty much lost your whole secondary outside of Cam Smith.
Yep.
So who are going to fill in there? I mean, that's where they took the biggest hit, is with that secondary, because you lost so many guys who played so many snaps. And right now it's just because they haven't done it yet. It's hard to say, well, these are the five guys that you're going to put in your secondary, and this guy right here, he's going to play that spur, that nickel position. So it's so unknown right now because you don't know who else they can go get. And the guys that they're looking at now is like, well, I mean, Jalen Foster started that last game in Kentucky at safety. You don't put him out there? I mean, if you got nobody else, I don't know. So there's just a whole lot unknown right now to where you can't really start filling in a depth chart. I mean, if you do, there's just going to be like, okay, well, this guy will start. Does he have a backup? No. You need to put him in another position? No, I don't. Yeah. There's just way too much going on right now to even think about who's going to play where. So with the scheme, it's great to have that as kind of the plan, but if you don't have the players, you're just going to have to say, all right, look, put 11 guys on the field and tell them to line up somewhere.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And look, they're going to continue to add names, and the kid that they're adding from Georgia State, Jordan Strawn, certainly one of the bigger names. I mean, you lead I don't care where you play, you lead the nation in sacks with 10.5 of those. That's good. Real quick on that, then I want to get some hoops in with you before we let you run. There's been some speculation out there that potentially the staff in Columbia could have contacted him before he'd actually you entered the transfer portal, and maybe Georgia State. I know a Georgia State writer over there, I think Ben Moore is his name, who writes for their 24/7 sports website, is kind of referenced as much that maybe there's some folks inside of the program at Georgia State that aren't happy with how this transpired. Have you heard any of this? Do you have an update on any of that?
That's news to me. I had not heard. All I know was that the kid committed yesterday, and I haven't really, looked into him outside of his particulars, which is, 6'4", 220, and 10.5 sacks last year. But honestly, that's something that if you're chirping about it, you might know something or somebody told you. And, if the NCAA goes looking around, well, let them come. But who knows? I have no personal knowledge of that.
Okay. All right. At this point in time, transfers whom have come to South Carolina from Georgia Southern, corner David Spalding, from Delaware, Darrell Williams, and Jordan Strawn, of course, from Georgia State. And the Gamecocks have also added Georgia Tech's Amarian Brown at wide receiver. Those are the transfers whom have transferred to the Gamecocks football program. All right, wanted to ask you about the ladies. South Carolina is set to play basketball tonight against Vanderbilt. These games are few and far between, it seems, these days, DC, when it comes to South Carolina hoops. We'll get to the men's side here in just a couple of moments. Did see earlier today that Virginia is opting out of the rest of the season. Their women are not going to play anymore. I know Duke has already done this, and I think maybe one other, George Washington or something. I can't remember who the other team is at this point. Have you heard anything like that around South Carolina women's basketball program, that they could get to a point, or that's a potential down the road to where, look, we just won't be able to complete this thing?
it's always a possibility, but I don't think it's much of an option with USC women, Jamie. I mean, they had one pause, and really that was a false positive. Yeah, they've been doing all the protocols. They had to scratch one game, but that game that they missed against Georgia, it's at least got the potential to be made up next week because Georgia will have an open date the same time South Carolina does. But yeah, the women, they're fine. They're going to be good. So of course this thing is affecting all of us. And in basketball, it's so much more difficult to try to keep going as normal when contact tracing pretty much wipes out a quarter of your team every time it happens. So with the women, I don't think that would ever be an option. They want to play, and if it's all possible to play, they're going to play. So, they had the one false positive that hurt the Georgia game last week, but they were able to play at Kentucky, won that game, and now I think they just landed in Nashville tonight to play Vanderbilt. So I wouldn't expect anything like that. And, with them, it's just week. Go up there, take care of your business, get back here, and then they got a big game against Arkansas on Monday night. So with the USC women, I would not expect that to ever happen.
Yeah. Haven't lost since that bizarre game that they played against 8th-ranked NC State, where they only scored 46 points against the Wolfpack. But since then, they've been hanging in there. We'll say that. They did not blow out Kentucky, but it was a nice road win against the 10th-ranked Wildcats just a couple of days ago, 75-70. You got Vanderbilt tonight. You got Arkansas coming up later on this weekend, or I guess early next week is when it is at home. And then from there, they'll start to get prepared for 4th-ranked UConn in Stores on February the 8th. There are some challenges in front of them. What has Dawn been saying? They have not played one. I don't care that they beat the College of Charleston by 80 points to start the year. That win means nothing. They have not played a complete game to this point. What has she been saying about her basketball team?
Well, that's precisely it. I mean, you beat Kentucky in the fashion that you do when you're pretty much trailing the whole game, and then in the last 14 minutes, you go from 9 down to 9 up. And it gets to a point a couple of times, but you get a couple of big buckets, a couple of big defensive stops, and you end up winning. I asked her, it's like, is this the point where this team clicked? And she said, no. I mean, you just look at the first half, and we were just bad defensively, and we just had some really bad passes that became turnovers and uncontested layups. And, good teams don't do that. And she did make a point. It's like, I realized that everybody was so disappointed that last year's team didn't get to finish, and we're disappointed too. But that was last year's team, and this is this year's team, and they're not the same. This year's team is much different. She said it's a challenging group. It's a fun group, but it's challenging as well because you do have to let some people grow into their roles. I mean, Destiny Henderson has mostly been playing all of the point guard minutes because they really haven't had the depth that they have, and that's cool. I mean, we saw Ty Harris play point guard for 4 years, but Destiny's more of a scorer than Ty Harris was. She's not as strong of a distributor as Ty Harris was. And that does bleed into the rest of your team. I mean, Aaliyah Boston, besides being a dominant player last year, she was really good because even as a freshman, she knew wherever she was in the paint, she could throw up her hand anywhere, and bam, that ball would be there. That's the point of having a 4-year point guard. You didn't have to try. It was like, I'm going to give you the ball. You score it. It was very simple. I mean, it has been a struggle this year. And when you're not getting the ball kind of where you want it, it throws off your rhythm. And, Aaliyah could have been a little more aggressive in some games. You saw it on Sunday night, how good she can be and the player that she is. But, before Sunday, it was like, what are you doing? You're kind of lifting your feet, looking tentative and passing the ball back out. Where's the All-American center we saw last year? So this team is still got to click. It's not panic time or anything like that. They're still tremendously talented. But there's going to be a lot of games that are coming up in a row where they're going to have to be sharp. Arkansas is a great team. Texas A&M is a great team. UConn's a great team. And you're going to have to get all those if you want to be where you want to be. So it is still a growing process. Obviously, there has been some time where you don't get the kind of things that you're used to. You didn't get as much of a warm-up before conference play. And let's not forget that the women get an advantage that really the guys don't. They get a practice squad. And it's all guys, 5 regular students that go in there and play the women. Well, they haven't had that since Thanksgiving break. Those guys are back on campus now, but they can't practice now because they're still going through quarantine.
Wow.
So you do have that. And that is a tremendous advantage to this team because they get in there and they don't take it easy, man. They play physical. And that's how this team can be, or a big part of why they've been as successful as they have, because those guys are behind the scenes helping them out in practice every day. They haven't had that since the campus broke for Thanksgiving.
Final question here with David Cloninger with the Post and Courier. I mean, those guys have played about as much as the men's team has played. Unfortunately, it's just been this sucks. Let me just put that in one word.
All of it.
It just sucks. I mean, this is the best team he's had. Frank has since the Final Four run in 2017, and they just can't get on the floor. I mean, it's unfortunate. They're expected to at 8:30 Saturday night down in Baton Rouge against the somehow I'm still coaching Will Wade and LSU, and then after that they got to hit the road for Columbia, Missouri, to take on the 17th ranked Missouri Tigers, by the way. So a couple of very difficult road tests are in store for Carolina basketball, DC. You can't even ask the question, like, what do you expect out of this team, because you don't know what to expect. They haven't been able to play. Now they go on the road, and LSU's 4-1 in the league, 9-2 overall. They have two tremendous challenges in front of them, and they haven't even been able to warm up and try to get ready for them. This is just remarkable.
Yeah, that's the thing, Jamie. I mean, 5 games. They played 5 games, which I think that total is less than pretty much anybody in Power 5. But, you can't help it. Somebody gets positive and your whole team's out. And then it happens again, then it happens again. And it really is frustrating. And I do feel the pain when Frank says, I don't know what to tell the guys anymore. Because you're just getting back, you're getting into a rhythm. You played a really strong game against Texas A&M, and you're thinking, okay, everything's going to be okay. And then all of a sudden, we're shut down again. You guys are back on the 2-week plan, staring at the 4 walls of your bedroom. I mean, that's just awful to tell to a young kid. But that's the situation that they're in. That's the situation that we're kind of all in, trying to play college basketball through this pandemic. So you just hope for the best, man. They have been able to get back and do some light practicing. Today's Thursday. I believe they got back Tuesday, doing some light practicing. And I haven't heard that the game Saturday is off. So you just have to keep hoping that the tests keep coming back negative and that it will be on. Because the main thing that gets here now, Jamie, is just try to get out on the court and play. Play a series of games so you can get your feet under you and see what kind of team you're going to be. And I know that you wouldn't rather be playing 2 ranked teams to start that, especially on the road, but this is the situation you're in. You're just going to have to play some games because, Jamie, honestly, if they're on pause much longer, it's going to be a case like even if you win every game you play, you're probably not going to have enough to keep playing in the postseason.
Wow.
And that's just the way it is. I mean, Everybody has got to be on the same judging block for the tournament this year. It's going to be like, how many games do we get to play? Okay, then we can start look at wins and losses. And, that's just the situation.
Wow.
Well, you hope for the best. And that's all you can keep doing. And, I wish I could say it's like, oh, well, it's somebody's fault. It's nobody's fault. I mean, you have no idea where this thing's coming from. Absolutely no idea. So you try your best to protect it, and then you just hope. And, Frank Martin has often joked about a little black cloud following his program around. A key injury there, a bad loss here, just something that's always seeming to just take the joy out of South Carolina basketball. Well, this is the biggest one. It's one thing where you don't play up to expectations. You lose a game, you should have. It's a whole nother one you just can't get on the court.
Yeah.
And you feel so bad for these kids because I know how hard every one of them worked, how hard every one of them wanted to get back on the floor and play this season because this was going to be a really good year. Well, it still can be. You just have to hope that the fates will allow it to be.
Yep. Yeah, it would be very South Carolina basketball-like for them to have a special year and not have enough games played to qualify for the tournament.
Oh, gosh.
Could you even imagine? I don't know what takes more of a hit, offense or defense, when you have this much time off, but they better bring both because LSU can score in a hurry, and they're going to try to do that against Carolina. Maybe they'll catch him a little bit rusty on Saturday night. Here's the good news for that game.
Hey, maybe the NCAA will finally punish Will.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, come on. They got more important things to do, like punish people for giving prospects a ride across campus and stuff like that in their personal vehicle. Here's the good news going into this game. Mike Morgan will call it on the SEC Network. My old buddy there. Everybody's old buddy. Everybody loves Mike. And so we'll get to hear the golden tones of one of the best voices out there on the SEC Network, 8:30 Saturday night. On that note, we're going to let you run and try to save your voice a little bit. We've kept you around for a while today, DC. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you so much for all of your hard work in covering what has just been a wild time in Columbia within the athletics department over the last few weeks. And we look forward to catching you again next week.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
David Cloninger on Twitter at DCPNC. I know Scott Glaze, he gets his hair all right and ready to go, and we're always late, but we'll have him when we return right here in the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what? I can always keep up with the news back in South Carolina because I've got the JB and Goldwater Show. Thank you, JB and Darren, for being live, loud, and online.
Your love lifting me higher.
All right, 142, final 20 minutes or so of our program. JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control, in business for over 40 years. That reminds me, I need to call Heath today, owner of McFadden Pest Control. And they do everything at our home. Those little quarterly bugs that try to pop in and out, they try to wait, like on the 88th day, they're like, yeah, we're good now. And then zapped, 90th, they're gone. So are the termites. We never had them. That's because of McFadden Pest Control. Right. And the mosquitoes in the summer. So
that's the biggest one.
That's right.
I'd rather termites eat my whole house down.
Would you?
Than go outside and get destroyed by mosquitoes because they kill me.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have a house to go back into.
Yeah,
I'm just
then I'd still get eaten by the mosquitoes.
Well, don't let
that
any
would be
of
a problem.
Look, you can solve all those problems by just calling Heath and McFadden Pest Control. By the way, before we get to Scott, happy 50th birthday to Chad Holbrook.
Hey,
he looks 60. No, I'm kidding, Coach. You look 30. But it's his 50th birthday today. So my friend Chad Holbrook, happy birthday. And happy Tiger Week again, Scott Glaze. What's up?
What's up, guys? What's going on? Everybody doing well, I hope. And I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on part 1 of the Tiger doc.
Why do you care about our thoughts? We want to hear your thoughts about Tiger. I look here. My quick 10-second thoughts on this. I thought it was tremendous. I thought the ending of it was awesome when they sat down. Rachel, you could tell, and she's like, "All right, so what do you want me to talk about?" And then it went black. I was like,
Great
you
tease.
got to be kidding
Great
me.
tease.
I thought it's exactly what we read and discussed last week, Scott. They didn't try. They were just literally telling a story. You have. It's hard to not have an emotional connection to what you saw.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I felt extreme empathy towards Tiger watching part 1 last week. I think, and as I mentioned before, I read that book that came out a few years ago, and it goes into far more detail. Obviously, it's a 500-page book. It goes into a lot more detail than a 3-hour documentary will. But seeing these clips that we'd never seen before of Tiger as a kid, his interactions with his dad and his parents, and I just felt a lot of empathy towards him. I think he was a young phenom, God-given talent, and wanted to be a great golfer, had this goal, and he was steered in a direction that ultimately led to the landmine moment that we had Tiger's demise. And now it'll be great to see on Sunday, hopefully this documentary, and I've heard they do a really great job of building the comeback to him winning the Tour Championship, winning the Masters. And I really hope they do a good job of that. But it really, man, it gives you some strong feelings about Tiger's upbringing. At least it does for me. Just because I think he was just a shy kid with a big goal, and he was molded to be this golfing machine. And there were a lot of negative effects to that, and we've seen that how that's panned out. And we're going to see that even more, because I think part 2 is going to really highlight the scandal and all of Tiger's infidelities. And that was the one thing, it kind of made me sad watching this documentary. And we compared it to The Last Dance last week, or what The Last Dance was and what this Tiger documentary will be. What made me sad is that I think we will get that feel-good Tiger documentary one day when he's removed from his playing career, when a lot of people can talk about Tiger and the greatness of Tiger. The problem with this documentary and others is that a lot of people still won't talk. And since Tiger's still playing, you have a lot of guys on tour that aren't going to speak about his career or anything like that. But what made me sad is that in The Last Dance and in Michael Jordan's career, Jordan never had that landmine moment where he crashed in front of all of us. And so you can have a feel-good documentary where it's just all great stuff, and there's no negative, and there's no way to avoid the downfall in Tiger's story. So I think it has made him who he is, especially who he is as we sit here today. And it makes the story so unique. But that did just make me feel a tad bit sad, is that no documentary, no story can ever be told about Tiger that doesn't have that dark cloud over it.
Yeah, and there is a dark cloud, or at least some dark clouds, around Michael Jordan and around his playing days, and they touched on him in the Last Dance. But Jordan was the one driving the production of that, so it was going to be framed how Michael Jordan wanted that thing to be framed, and that, I think that's the big difference here. This is something where Tiger was approached twice to be a part of it. Once he said he's got a contract with someone else. The next time he said not going to do it. So I'm fascinated to see how the second part will weave. It's going to go right into the scandal to start. That's the tease they left us with. And then to weave us around how he navigated his way back without actually talking to Tiger will be fascinating to see how they weave that thing back.
Yeah, that's a really great point of how they're going to weave back how he came back, tried to play, his injury, basically being at the brink of not being able to walk again, potentially, and come all the way back to them win the Masters without talking to the man himself. That's going to be very difficult. One thing I was disappointed in, and this is just the golf geek in me, is that there were inaccuracies with footage at these majors when they talked about, and I don't know how I caught it, maybe because like I said, I'm just a big golf nerd, but they were talking about the 1997 Masters, and they were showing clips from that week and from some of those rounds. And in the midst of the narration, or whoever was speaking and talking about the 97 Masters, they would have a random clip that was clearly from the mid 2000s. But it was at Augusta National. That happened once or twice. They also had the 2001 Masters when Tiger completed the Tiger Slam. And they were talking about his final round and some shots that he hit. They were totally out of order in terms of the holes as they lie at Augusta National. I don't know exactly what it was. I'd have to see it again, but I want to say they showed him making birdie at 15 and then followed that up with a a birdie at 11 and then followed that up with a great shot at 6, but made it seem like that was the sequence of shots before he then made the putt to secure the Tiger Slam on 18. So that was something that stood out to me because it was odd. And I mean, I understand if your directors and your filmmakers are not golfers and they're doing it from the story side, but it just seems something simple to get right. But it's also me nitpicking a little bit with it. But this next week is going to be really good, and I think of the junior golfers that we have out here at Sono, that they're growing up with a totally different Tiger and a totally different generation of golfers. And these golfers are here because of Tiger. And I haven't been able to pick the brains of any of those golfers that we have around here who are under 18, even college age kids, to see what they think about all this, because this is not as fresh or as close to home as it was to the three of us when Tiger went through this whole part of his career.
1:50 on a Thursday afternoon. Head golf pro Scott Glaze with Stono Ferry Golf joining us here on the JB and Goldwater Show, as he does generally on Thursdays around here. StonoFerryGolf.com. Beautiful day. I'm sure the course is full, and it's supposed to be nice this weekend as well. Chilly, but still nice to get out and play some golf. If you've been cooped up throughout the holidays, do it. StonoFerryGolf.com to book tee times. All right. The one thing that I took away from this, by the way, real quick, I'm sorry. The Sony Open in Hawaii, Clemson's Kyle Stanley tied for the lead with Kevin Kisner at 3 under right now in the first round. The one real takeaway that I had, that I felt in my gut a little bit, not because it's happened to me or because I've done this to somebody, but was when Dina Parr said she received that letter. She read the letter in the in part 1 here, and then said, I had to literally treat this like death. Like he was just gone. I mean, it was over. Tiger, I'm not going to see him again. It's over. And she said the one thing that she really wanted out of that was, tell me to my face that you don't want to see me anymore, that you believe all this to be true in this letter. What was your takeaway from that moment? I thought that was a very powerful moment.
Very powerful moment. I knew, and I mentioned that last week, that story is in the book. To me, it seems like it was orchestrated by someone other than Tiger. He was kind of instructed to do what he did. I really enjoyed hearing her speak, not only on that, but on other things. I felt like she was very passionate about this and about Tiger. I think obviously, maybe your first relationship, first love, so to speak, and then how it ended. And like you said, how she had to basically treat it like death, that he was gone. And then what Tiger turned out to be, I'm sure that she has had many emotions. I'm sure was eager to speak about them. It was also powerful to me that she kept that letter. I mean, she read from that exact letter in the documentary after all these years. So it clearly, Tiger made an impact on her, but I think vice versa. I think she made a huge impact on Tiger, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it seems like her parents, or his parents, Earl and Tita, might have thought that was a threat to the potential career that was in front of Tiger, and ended it. So I was pleasantly surprised with her comments. I thought she's been a great addition to the documentary, and I don't know if we'll hear from her in part 2, but she was one of the stars in part 1.
Does your impression change at all based on part 1? I think it's premature for me to really have a feel on this just yet until we see the rest of it. But does yours, Darren, do y'all's impressions change of his parents based on what we've seen in that first hour and a half?
Not me.
Yeah. I mean, I think they were always strict and clearly wanted to mold Tiger to be a great champion. I guess just never seeing it visually, and you were able to see it visually in the documentary. And not that I cringed at any type of moment, but there were a couple moments. I mean, the very opening scene of the documentary where Earl is speaking and says, you have to forgive me for the way I talk about my son and talk about how he's going to be more influential than Gandhi. And they cut to Tiger, who's sitting at the table, and he's kind of, rubbing his brow, and it's kind of like, Dad, come on. Having not seen that, it gave me a little bit of a different feeling about Earl, especially. And you have to be different, you have to be driven to be great, but really at what cost? And Tiger is, in my mind, the greatest of all time, but he paid a price in order to get there.
I mean, the way I see it, especially having read that book a couple years ago, that's the parenting I thought. I mean, that's now the Gandhi thing was eye-opening, but in general, from an overall perspective, Tiger was molded by his dad in particular to become Tiger Woods. He was crafted this way, and there were lots of things. I mean, you mentioned the ex-girlfriend. Were the parents involved in that? Maybe. Was she a distraction towards the end goal of being the greatest all time?
Oh, I think they absolutely were.
Right, maybe. So it didn't change my opinion of them necessarily.
This is a double-edged sword, the way that they raised Tiger, because if they didn't do what they did, we wouldn't have Tiger. We wouldn't have this version of Tiger. But it also, you see the cost that it had on his personal life was enormous. I mean, he had probably the greatest wife he could have had in Elin, and look what happened. I mean, it's tragic in so many ways, but his story is magnificent.
Yeah, the psychoanalysis of a great champion and athlete, and then, like I said, the psychoanalysis of what makes them great, but also what makes them not so great. That's what's so unique about the Tiger story, is that that's what we get to dissect, and it's great at times, and it's difficult at times. It's unlike any other story, really. I mean, there's nothing quite like it.
It's a tradition unlike any other, like the Masters, which is coming up here in April. So we got to leave it there, Scott. But next week we'll be able to actually look back over this in its entirety. I'm going to also ask Scott, starting next week, to start giving us some golf tips around here, so we can start, as we get back out on the course, maybe have something in the pocket or two to work on from one of maybe the best pro in the whole state right here. Is that cool with you?
Hey, that's cool with me. Well, I'll get with you. Maybe I can film something so you can broadcast it up there, and then we can talk about it.
That would be awesome.
You took the words right out of my mouth. That's easy for us to do.
Great minds think alike.
That's right. Absolutely. StoneOakFerryGolf.com. You talk about a tradition unlike any other. That is certainly one. The neatest, most beautiful golf course we've got around here. And you can book a tee time by heading to StoneOakFerryGolf.com. Also, if you are looking for lessons, Scott and others are available there to give those as well. StoneOakFerryGolf.com, on the banks of the Stono River in beautiful and the original Hollywood, South Carolina. Scott, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Enjoy Sunday night, the part 2 of the Tiger documentary, and I really cannot wait. Next week, we're going to have the full 30 minutes, so we'll be able to recap this entire thing with you then.
Nice. Yeah, look forward to it, guys. Everybody enjoy Tiger Doc. We do have primetime golf again in Hawaii. So everybody enjoy. Have a great weekend.
There you go. Scott Glaze on Twitter. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
Later.
We've got a touchdown. Urban Meyer has landed at Cecil Airport in Jacksonville.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me it was a done deal.
No, but he's landed in Jacksonville. It's about to be a done deal.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Real quick on the Handy Dandu, what day is it calendar? It is Ratification Day.
Okay.
It's National Dress Up Your Pet Day.
Guy, that bugs me more than anything in the world. I feel awful for all pets who get dressed up.
Yeah, me too. I'm with you. And it's National Hot Pastrami Sandwich Day.
Yes. Jewish folk unite, man. There's nothing better than a hot pastrami sandwich.
I had a hot pastrami in Times Square one time, and it was wonderful.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect spot to do it.
It was from the 5-Star Deli. I remember because we met the Naked Cowboy, and we also saw Shooter McGavin, who was signing his check in front of us at the
wherever it was
at 5-Star Deli.
All right.
Yeah, it was neat. All right, thanks to Cory McCartney, David Cloninger, and Scott Glaze. Thanks to our friends at Patriots Point for presenting the national anthem, patriotspoint.org, to tour the museum. Try some bourbon. Get over to James Island and go to Paddock and Whiskey, the neatest bourbon bar in the state, I promise you. It's got the biggest and largest selection in the state of South Carolina. It's amazing. PaddockandWhiskey.com for more. For Darren, I'm Jamie. We're back at noon tomorrow. Keep an eye on the Gamecock stuff as well. It's going to be a full boat. Looking forward to that. Have a terrific and thirsty Thursday afternoon at Paddock and Whiskey, by the way. You like that? We'll see you back here tomorrow at noon on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.